Should we just go home?
When did you paint your nails?
I was reading a useless book, and my daughter said, "Dad, since you're being useless, can you be useful to me?" I said, "Sure." So I sat for hours.
So she made your hair and makeup and
The hair,
I don't know. Did she put a wig on?
a wig. I have a full head of hair. Yeah, so this is, and then.
Right. You had a new wardrobe too, like a dress.
I wear a dress.
Yeah. You were helping her? I mean, she meant
I wear a dress. I'm from Iran. Such things are not done. I can only go so far,
I had something.
Sure.
You talked a lot about love.
Love, yes.
Do we, I don't want to say do we need to, is the hope to fall in love with a question, with idea, with knowledge to be able to know it? I don't know if I'm phrasing this right. But
can I tell you a story? I'll give you two stories. One very recent, one goes back maybe 3-4 decades. The first story has to do with the tower building and the elevators. As most of you know, the elevators have not been working for almost 2 months. And what is interesting, not so much about when I encounter young people going up and down the stairs, but people who are relatively, old, maybe 40 and up, and I look at their faces and I look at the way they're panting, and it's such a miserable place to be. Your knees, your back, and you just see the pain on their face. And because it's something I experience every single 4 days a week, going up and down, and then coming down to unlock the door, then going back up. And because health-wise, I'm going through some things, and so it becomes a little difficult for me. And then what happens is I'm able to project my own pain. Hello. And all of a sudden, what happens is I can actually feel very intimate to the people who are walking up the stairs. And I ask this question from my dean, once in a while from the VP, from other faculty members. When are the elevators going to be fixed? Now, it's a question I haven't asked for 20 years. And the reason is, for the past 20 years, if both elevators are not working, at least one of them is. But now neither of them are. And this question comes with so much emotions that not only live inside me, but also emotions I see in other people. The question is very relevant for me. It's very intimate for me. It's a question that has a good amount of pain. And every single day I look at my email to see if there is a message from the president when the elevators will be working. Yesterday there were 3 trucks by the tower building working on the elevators. And this morning when I came here about, 5 or 6, I was hoping that one of them would be working, but there was a sign. They're out of order. But it took 20 years for both elevators to be shut. It took a few times for me to go up and down to realize that my back and my breath and my lung and my heart, they're not doing so well, for this question to come up. And there is a good amount of me and my age and my history and my future that's involved in the question. When are the elevators going to be fixed? You need to show up to the philosophy class. Okay? Now that's the first example. So a question that you don't yourself embody, it doesn't mean anything. It's a good intellectual exercise. And I'm sure you can go to a coffee shop and dazzle a companion.
One more time, sorry.
I mean, you can have interesting mental, intellectual questions. Tell me about Plato. Tell me about love. And these are conversations you can have for hours with people.
Intimately related.
Or not. If your task is to kind of inspire someone because you've read a couple of books by Eric Fromm, for example, or Sigmund Freud, or Carl Jung, or Jesus Christ, doesn't really matter. The other has to do with, morning, has to do with about 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago when I was sitting and having my Subway sandwich. And the phone rings. There are no cell phones at this point. There's no internet. And yeah. And so my friend calls, and forgive me, Kendra and Abi, because this is a repeat. And my friend calls saying that my son died. Died? What do you mean died? Behrang died. How? He was only 17. He goes to pick him up from the basketball court, they're driving home, and all of a sudden the son passes out. It's one of those freaks of nature, No one decides how they want to be born, where they want to be born, what kind of parents they want to have, or how they want to die. It just, up in the air, everything is. And so in our culture, you call 5 people, they go to the mortuary, they wash the body, for 5 hours, and then they put the body in the grave. Now, I'm a very young man at this stage, and they called me because I was interested in ideas, And so while I'm washing this corpse, it's a 17-year-old kid, beautiful kid I had known for maybe 10 years. They say, how is he dead? Why is he dead? How does life come about, and where does life go? Who's in charge of all of this mess? Why is it happening? And I had to go to the car wash so that my parents could join the rituals at the cemetery. And while I'm washing cars, life just feels surreal. I can't make sense of it. Nothing makes any sense, And so for the next 2 weeks, I asked myself, well, what should anyone do with life? What is the purpose of this whole thing? You go to school, you play this, you do all of this stuff, you plan for your future, and within moments, you're just gone. What means anything, really? And the point I'm trying to make in regards to asking questions is that you occupy different stages in life. And every stage brings its own needs, its own desires, its own wants, its own concerns. Some of you come to this class and your basic need is, I just want to graduate. I want to pass this class. How do I do the assignments? And I look at you, I look at your questions, I look at the way you ask your questions, I look at your body language, I look at how many times you've missed class, how interested you are, how often you're on your cell phone, how attentive you are. And after putting all these information together, I say to myself, well, I'm not going to bend over backwards to make this student understand how important maybe some of the ideas we talk about in class, is. So I'm just going to say, plagiarize, I'll give you a C, end of story. If on the other hand, you had a student who spoke with a good amount of passion, pain, reflection, then I would approach it differently. And you're talking about just injustice of life. You're 18. 18-year-old can't be serious unless they've gone through some episodes and they have trauma inside them. A 45-year-old who's just starting school, they have a good amount of regret inside them. Why didn't I do this much earlier in life? What is wrong with me? So when they ask questions, hopefully, it's just more than being academic. It's more than simply revolving around a grade. And so you realize that, well, it's just natural for you to take some people very seriously and to dismiss other people. That's just the way things are. Now, I have no doubt that an 18-year-old desires to be respected. Well, they have their own friends. Let them be respected on TikTok. Anyone else before we go home? Sibli.
I was curious, how old were you?
I was 13. At the age of 11, I went to India. And my parents weren't around.
Your parents were around?
No. They were not with me and my brother, who was 10. Yeah. And the nice thing about not having my parents around was that we didn't live in an environment where a certain set of narratives were being sold to us, such as your parents pushed you to India because they didn't love you. Your parents abandoned you. Because it is an advertisement. And if you have 20 friends and 15 of them every 10 minutes telling you that your parents didn't like you, that's why you're here, then all of a sudden you would have a set of emotions that you didn't have before, which is, oh, maybe my parents didn't like me. Why didn't they like me? I'm only 11. If they didn't want me, why am I here? My mom should have probably just aborted me right there and then. And then at the age of 60, for example, I would probably be in therapy still to resolve the issues. But thankfully, there were nowhere around. We weren't sold these sorts of narratives, you know. And so we remained healthy for the most part. Yeah, whatever you want to do, you got to do it when you're young. There are pros and cons. When you're old, you have a lot of experience, but there's a good amount of, you become like concrete. You know, when you're young, you're like a blade of grass. You can bend all over the place. When you're older, what happens is you can change, but there are lots of things you have to get rid of, and it's painful. Being older is useful because the older person has a history they can work with. You know, it's like going to the zoo. There are lots of animals out there you can play with. Like there's a difference between going to Oakland Zoo and San Francisco Zoo. You know, Oakland Zoo is like being 18. You have a few things you can play with. You know, yeah, I drank too much, yeah, I smoked too much, yeah, you know, I got into a fight. These are like 3, 4, 5 things you can play with, and they're, for the most part, useless. When you're a little older, you know, you've lost time. Your relationship with time is different. Your relationship with your body is different. Your relationship with people are different. Your relationship with yourself is different. The amount of regrets and remorse you have inside you, you know, the desire to go back in time and fix some of the wrinkles in your life. All you need is someone that you can trust and eventually fall in love with and have them guide your psyche. That's all. So that you...
That's your narrative.
Which one?
That's what's true for you.
I think that's what's true in general, though.
True in what sense? Like narratives about parents?
What?
Stories about parents, or?
Well, just everything. Everything is, that's your lived experience.
Yes, that's true for me and true for everyone else.
Oh, how, for all human beings on the
Yes,
planet?
everyone.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
You know, I'm sitting here because you and I are the same age. So I'm being highly entertained. I have to say.
Yeah. You know, again, it's like going back to the elevator story. You know, sure, it is difficult on the body of a 56-year-old person to climb 7 stories. It doesn't matter how healthy you are, you're just not 18 anymore. There are limitations to your body, you know. And is it true that there could be 1 or 2 90-year-olds who can climb 7 stories without, you know, suffering too much? Yeah, but for the most part, you know, the common denominator is you're old, you're gonna suffer, period.
Well, all human beings suffer.
Yeah, but I'm talking about climbing the stairs.
Well, I mean,
And, yeah.
so much of that depends, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's perspective and experience is different.
No.
Okay.
But, well, India, you okay? I don't mean to be combative. It's just the way I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get it.
Lewis?
Is that what makes, like, I guess trauma or stress are people different from, like, psychologists in America to psychologists in different countries? Because over here, we're a little more sensitive. Whereas if you tell the same problems in a different country, they're like, well, yeah, that's life, you know what I mean? And then there's a lot more definitions to what can be stressful, abusive, harmful, whatever.
Cultures are like people. A 2-year-old, you look at a 2-year-old, meanly they'll cry. You look at a 50-year-old meanly, they'll just come and smack you in the face. When you look at India, well, damn, it's been around for like 4, 5, 6,000 years. You know, they have literature that dates back 4, 5, 6,000 years. There is not an area of life that haven't explored. You know, they have rituals, they have customs, and they have a history. It's taken 5,000 years and lots of pain to kind of create those stories. Same with the Arab world, same with the Persian world, same with the Asian world. America is only 200 years old. It's an infant. Infants are always going to be sensitive. Infants are always going to say, I want my freedom. I want things to be done my way. I mean, ask anyone in this class who has kids, they'll tell you. You know, you have children that listen to you for 5, 10 minutes. The rest of the day, it's their way. That's why parents have a good amount of frustration. And if they're lucky, they can kind of hone the frustration and say, yeah, you know, hopefully I can just go to bed at 6 o'clock and not hear a thing from these kids.
Oh, it's 9:30.
You know, yeah. But the point is, when you come from a young culture, you can't but be just pushed around by your own emotions, by the external forces, you know, and it's like anything goes. Anything goes. Anyone else before we... Grace?
I got distracted by the train whistle. Sorry.
Jamie?
I'm trying to remember how I asked it. It was about the Gilgamesh story from the video. We were talking about it in the last class. But you mentioned something about the superiority between that Gilgamesh recognized between the person that they were wrestling and themselves. And so they thought they were equals, and he recognized this other person as superior. And this is like part of knowledge. So I'm asking, do you think that superiority and that kind of power dynamic is necessary for knowledge?
Well, there are a couple of things. It's something we talked about yesterday. By the way, for those of you who are free Tuesdays and Thursdays and you're bored silly, feel free to drop by this class about 9. I have a class in this room. And we talked about that yesterday. So there are a couple of things in regards to Gilgamesh, Enkidu, the wrestling, power. Samuel. So, a couple of things about power. If I was to cut you or categorize you in maybe 4 or 5 different boxes, there is a physical part to you, your body. Okay. You could either be attractive or unattractive. If you're attractive, when you go to any party out there, you have a great amount of power. You don't need to do much. Your face, your physical body is like a magnet. And people will walk towards you. Okay? The people who walk towards you will give you a great amount of power, relevance, meaning, importance. They'll be sweating while they're talking to you. And you'll be pushing them around. You'll flirt with them, okay? Just to toy with them. That's one sort of power. Now, the thing with power, any kind, and then there is the emotional part. This is another part to you, okay? Now, you raise your hand, you ask a question, and just passion oozes out of you. And people in this room can see that, can feel that. And once in a while, they become intoxicated by the way you say what you say. There's a great amount of force. And then you back that force with, I play the piano. I also do jazz. I also know this 22-year-old Hungarian kid named Peter Buka who plays piano. Okay? I love Lang Lang, who plays the piano. Okay? And so what you have now is you have a very attractive physical body. And your emotions are also very attractive. Okay? Now, you have power times 2. So when someone looks at you, they have certain feelings towards you, and they're positive. They gravitate towards you. Now, you intoxicate them even more because emotionally there is something very desirous about you. People want you for whatever the reasons may be. Okay? Then there is the intellectual aspect to you. Not only are you physically attractive, not only are you emotionally mature, but intellectually, when you speak, you're coherent, you're clear, you open things up, you finish other people's sentences in ways they could never. And you take the conversation to places that they never imagined, fathomed in a million years. That's a lot of power to be had. Okay? Now, there is another kind of power, which is history. Let's say you are at a gathering and someone says, so tell me about yourself. I don't have a mom, I don't have a dad, I used to do A, B, C, D, I served 20 years, Folsom Prison, all that stuff, okay? And it's a horrifying, tragic story, but somehow, out of the ashes of life, you resurrected, you become this beautiful rose. And you realize all of a sudden that people are not only attracted to all of this, they're also attracted to your history. Now, there is the spiritual part, but forget that for now. So when we talk about power, you need to understand some people may be physically attractive, but intellectually, they're just dumb. And it's going to take you maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks before you realize, oops, you made a mistake. The body was a trap. The intellect, it's like quicksand. You got sucked into it only to realize there is nothing in there. This is an 18-year-old. Or anyone from 0 to about 45, 50. Okay? Because it really takes a long time to figure out how to think and how to think well. And you need to think well because life, it'll push you around. It'll bully you. What's the guy's name? Albert Camus. He's one of those tragic existentialists, and it's a fancy word for saying some guy who can't find meaning in society, someone who can't find meaning in relationships, someone who can't find meaning, relevance, purpose, identity in reading books. And they're looking for something. They have like this lost companion, and it doesn't matter where they go, what they touch, what they read, they just can't find it. Okay? So they're just lost and confused. Now, someone may be attractive here, but they have zero feelings about them. They're very detached. It may be because of a trauma they experienced a long time ago. They can't form intimacy. You want to get close to them. You like their ideas, you like their body, but emotionally, they're just not available. Okay? Now, the thing with power, any kind of power, whether it's physical, emotional, intellectual, or spiritual, is that power has a tendency of getting you drunk. You don't know what to do with it. All you know is that you have a lot of power. It's like money. You don't find very many 18-year-olds who are millionaires who are able to spend their money well. You have to waste it. One of the most beautiful stories about the human condition you will find in, I think, the Gospel of Luke, prodigal son. It basically means a son or a human being who wastes. And they waste because, well, that's all we can do, really. It's my first time riding a bicycle. It's my first time getting into a relationship. It's my first time getting into a car. It's my first time with everything out there. And I don't really have the proper skills. All I know is that I have the power and the privilege to have it. What I do with it is a different story. I have a saw, I have a 2x4, and I have the desire to build a shed. Have I built a shed before? No. Have I ever cut a 2x4? No. All I know is that I have the desire called a shed, I have a 2x4, and I have a saw. That's a lot of power. I have to waste a good amount of 2x4s, go through lots of saws and saw blades, make a lot of mistakes, and after 10 years, hey, now I know how to cut a 45-degree angle. Now I know how to put up a shingle, to make a roof, drywall, stucco, all that stuff, okay? So what all of us have in this class, regardless of your position in life, if you are angry because of some unresolved events in your life, that anger gives you a great amount of power. You raise your hand and you say, you said this to me, why? And there is this tone to you. It's not pleasant, but the anger gives you power. And there is something about us that all of a sudden stands up. So, oh, anger. And you back off a little bit. Now, whenever you have power in the hands of anyone who is young and lacks experience, lacks maturity, lacks observation and the power to reflect, is that they're always going to be intoxicated. They're always going to be a bully. It doesn't matter. I mean, all of us in this class have been in relationships, and all of us in this class have had bouts of anger. And then you talk to your companion, you look at your companion, but the tone is anger, and your companion backs off a little. That gives you a good amount of power, okay? Now, anger is part of life. You can't get rid of it. You know, it protects you as well as allows you to bully other people. But ultimately, the point is, power gets you drunk. And there comes a point in you drinking alcohol excessively, or anger excessively, or power excessively, is there comes a point where you say, I don't feel too good. And then you walk to a corner and you puke. You vomit. You're sick. And while you're vomiting, you say to yourself, how could I have been so dumb? I drank, yes. I had a good amount of fun with my friends. I laughed. I did this, that. But it's not fun, man, when your guts are coming out. And then you're in bed. And while you're in bed or while you're puking, all you have is a good amount of anger towards yourself and how dim-witted you've been. Then fine, you want to drink a glass of beer or wine, okay. But 50 of them, there is something wrong with you. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that just because you're puking, you've learned your lesson. Because remember, all the stuff, what they do is they create addiction. And addiction basically means there is an event that comes to your life, okay? And it repeats itself over and over and over again. You don't know what to do about your past, so you take your body to a bar, okay? The first time you do, say, this is not bad. I don't think about the past as much. And if I do, well, it's not as painful. So you do it again. And after 5 years, you're no longer a social drinker. You know. So remember, all the stuff creates addictions. And the older you get, your addictions become more. It's harder to break. Now, there comes a point where you have drank power so much and threw up so much that something about you, and I don't know how it happens, I don't know why it happens, and it's not a how-to. You can't go read a book and wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to follow this particular path and eventually I'll get there. It doesn't work that way. And I say this because all the great teachers of humanity, they've all tried to educate us and they've all failed. All of them, without exception. It's only after their death, their ideas have been advertised, sold to the rest of us, and all of a sudden say, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian. Are you kidding? When Muhammad was alive, he couldn't convert anyone for 10 years. You're a kid in the 21st century in America. So we are more than happy to kind of just give a label to ourselves, okay? No, but at any rate, there comes a point where you say, I have a lot of power, and with my good looks and with my good intellect, I have enjoyed many relationships, and I have enjoyed the intimacy. But I look at myself now at the age of 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, I realize I'm all alone. All I have are memories. I was deceived by my good looks and my good thoughts. Okay, but they have taken me nowhere. And then you say, you know what? Now, what I want to do is when I go out on dates, I'm going to do the best I can to have people not look at my face or my body. I don't even want them to listen to my ideas. I want them to understand my ideas. Now, you do something very interesting. At the age of 18, you would date thousands of people. At the age of 35, 40, now you have tamed your power because the power didn't serve you well. So there are two stages. You have power, you don't know what it is. All you know is that it gives you a good amount of resources, you take advantage of them, and you just have a lot of fun. There comes a point where you say, I had my fun, I am tired of having fun, I want stability, like the cavemen. You know, I'm tired of running around, I just want like a shelter. And I know where that shelter is, and I wanted to have it every single day. And now you use your power in a very, very different way. You comb through the men or women that walk into your life. So it takes a while for anyone to be able to domesticate, to tame their powers. Now, the moment you understand and the moment you feel, not just understand intellectually, but also feel what you understand, you're going to be enormously judgmental.
On yourself?
And you're going to be biased in this sense. All 50-year-olds who walk the stairs, they're going to be tired. It's universal. You need to realize that the moment you understand something really, really well, it is a universal truth. It just doesn't belong to 18-year-olds. It doesn't belong to just America. It's everywhere. So what happens, for example, in the story of Malcolm X, he's only concerned about black people initially. Once he gains more maturity, he says, anyone is welcome at my table. I just want, regardless of the skin color, I want him to think and behave maturely. According to who? According to Malcolm. Now, the problem with understanding is your circle shrinks. If you're 18, you have 20 friends. You know, once the seriousness of life dawns upon you, you only have 10 friends. And by this time, you're 30. Once you have a companion, once you have children, and you realize you don't just want anyone in your life, your friendships amount to maybe 2, if you're lucky. Because you want to protect what you have. And that's what maturity does. It gets rid of a lot of trash in life. A lot of trash. Now, if you have dim-witted friends, they'll call you, why are you so biased? Why are you so judgmental? What's wrong with you? You're a hater. You know the way people talk about these days. And the truth is, you are judgmental for good reason. You want to save your time. You want to save your family. You want to save your energy. You only want to give. You know, there's this beautiful verse in one of the Gospels. Do not give your jewels, or do not throw your jewels to swines. First, it takes a long, long, long time for any human being to find a jewel, to find gold. People don't really have anything good to offer you. Nobody does. And if they do, it's accidental. Or unless they're like a genius, like a Mozart. They're born, all of a sudden they say piano. They don't say mom or dad, piano. You rarely find genius or gifted people. So for you to have something of value, okay, you must have worked really, 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 really hard, knocked on a lot of doors, asked a lot of questions, and ultimately say, this is what I'm good at. This is what I've discovered. And then what happens is you try people because you want to share. You know? You want to share the goods that live inside you, or the goods that you have. And after a while, you realize, well, yeah, initially it's fun. You give people things, compassion, kindness, and all that stuff. Then after a while, you say, you know what? I work in the kitchen all day. All I want is a simple thank you. That's all I want. And then you go out and you give a hamburger to someone and there is no thank you. In addition, they say, oh, well, I'm a vegetarian. You're homeless. Are you like allergic to meat? No. I am worried about my health. Really? And then you say, you know what? I'm just going to make sandwiches, but I'm going to examine the person to whom I'm going to give the sandwich to. So the moment there is anything good about you, you become very, very, very discriminate. You won't share it with anyone. It's something that women are really, really good at. Really good at. Men are like vultures. They're pigs. So yeah, it takes a while. You know, your body is healthy enough to consume alcohol and be okay after a couple days. That's power. You have money to consume alcohol. That's power. You have friends who drink with you. That's power. There comes a point where that power is removed from you. Whether you get sick, whether you fall ill, whether you categorize yourself as a drunkard, doesn't really matter. Whether you just wake up and you say, I need AA. Now, you're young, that's power. You have time, that's power. But instead of spending that time in bars, now you spend that time in AA center, having found different kinds of friends who will support you in your path towards rehab. That's another kind of power. But this kind of power comes with a good amount of reflection, pain. Yeah.
With reflection, you can only hope to shorten the amount of time wasted, not eliminate it, right?
So there are a couple of things in regards to reflection.